Now let's begin. Adam Snyder wiped down the counter for the third time that morning, his mind already on the afternoon shift at the warehouse. His son, 5-year-old Lucas, sat at the kitchen table pushing Cheerios around his bowl, making engine noises as he crashed them together. The kid had his mother's dark eyes and Adam's stubborn chin. "Daddy, can we go to the park today?" Lucas asked, milk dribbling down his chin. "Maybe tomorrow, buddy. Daddy's got to work." Adam tousled his son's hair. "But Mommy's off today, so—" The front door opened, and Dawn Snyder walked in carrying grocery bags, her phone pressed to her ear. She'd been up early for her nursing shift at County General. "No, Dad. I told you Tuesday works better," she was saying, her voice strained. She glanced at Adam and rolled her eyes. Marvin Phillips had been calling more frequently since his wife Helen died 6 months ago. The man lived alone in the sprawling house where Dawn grew up, rattling around with his antique collections and his bitterness. Adam had never warmed to him. Something about the way Marvin's eyes went cold when he looked at Lucas, like he was assessing merchandise rather than his grandson. Dawn ended the call and sighed. "My father wants to take Lucas to the new mall today. Says he needs some grandfather-grandson time." She said it like she was trying to convince herself it was a good idea. Adam's jaw tightened. Lucas barely knows him. Exactly why Dad wants to spend time with him. He's trying, Adam. Since Mom died, he's been lost. Adam had his doubts about Marvin Phillips trying anything that didn't benefit Marvin Phillips, but Dawn had been fragile since her mother's death. Helen had been the buffer between Marvin's calculating nature and the rest of the world. Without her, the old man's edges seemed sharper. "I don't know, Dawn. 3 years old seems pretty young for a mall trip with. He's 5, and my father raised me just fine." Dawn's tone had that defensive edge that meant the conversation was over. Adam looked at Lucas, who'd perked up at the mention of the mall. The kid loved the carousel and the fountain. "All right," Adam said slowly, "but you text me every hour, okay? And Lucas, you stay with Grandpa the whole time." Marvin arrived at noon, driving his pristine Lincoln Town car that smelled like leather and cologne. He wore his usual uniform, pressed slacks, button-down shirt, that pinky ring he'd gotten in his Navy days. The man had been a quartermaster, managed supplies and inventory, and he'd never let anyone forget his service. "Lucas, my boy," Marvin said with practiced warmth. "Ready for an adventure?" Lucas looked uncertainly at Adam, then nodded. Adam crouched down. "Be good, okay? And if you need anything, you tell Grandpa to call Daddy." "Okay, Daddy." Lucas's small hand disappeared into Marvin's larger one. Adam watched the Lincoln pull away, that familiar unease settling in his gut. He'd felt it the first time he met Marvin, when the old man had looked at him like something that had contaminated his daughter's life. Adam had been working construction then, putting himself through night school for a business degree. Not good enough for Marvin Phillips's daughter. The unease grew when 1 hour passed without a text. Then 2. Adam called Dawn. "He's probably just keeping Lucas busy," she said, but he could hear the worry creeping into her voice. "You know how Dad is with phones." At 3 hours, Adam called Marvin's cell. It went straight to voicemail. "I'm going to drive out there," Adam said. "Adam, don't. You'll just embarrass him. He'll be home soon." But when the Lincoln finally pulled into their driveway at 5 p.m., 3.5 hours after they'd left, Adam was waiting on the porch. Marvin got out slowly, adjusting his collar. Lucas emerged from the back seat, clutching a shopping bag, his face pale. "We had a wonderful time," Marvin announced. "Bought the boy some new clothes, got him a pretzel, rode the carousel twice." Lucas walked past Adam without a word, his eyes fixed on the ground. "Hey, buddy, did you have fun?" Adam asked, but Lucas just kept walking, disappearing into the house. Marvin smiled that thin smile of his. "He's tired. It's exhausting at that age." He checked his watch. "I should be going. Give my love to Dawn." Adam stood on the porch long after the Lincoln disappeared, that unease now a cold weight in his chest. Inside, Lucas had gone straight to his room. Dawn was with him, trying to coax him out. "Sweetheart, are you hungry? Grandpa said you had a pretzel, but that was hours ago." Silence. "Lucas, baby, did something happen?" More silence. Adam entered the room. Lucas was sitting on his bed, still clutching the shopping bag, staring at the wall. His eyes were red-rimmed, but but there were no tears. That scared Adam more than crying would have. "Hey, champ," Adam said softly, sitting beside him. "You can tell us anything. You know that." Lucas's lower lip trembled. Then he shook his head violently and clutched the bag tighter. Dawn looked at Adam, fear dawning in her eyes. "Maybe we should call." "No," Lucas said, his voice barely a whisper. It was the first word he'd spoken since coming home. Grandpa said no. Those 3 words made Adam's blood run cold. They tried everything that evening. Offered his favorite foods, chicken nuggets, mac and cheese. Put on his favorite cartoon. Nothing. Lucas moved through the house like a ghost, jumping at every sudden noise, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. At 3 a.m., Adam woke to the feeling of small hands gripping his arm. Lucas stood beside the bed, shaking so hard his teeth chattered. Without a word, Adam lifted him onto the bed, and the boy burrowed against his chest. Dawn stirred. "Lucas? Baby, what's wrong?" Lucas's breathing was rapid, panicked. Adam held him close, feeling the violent tremors running through the small body. "It's okay, buddy. You're safe. Whatever it is, you're safe now." The shaking intensified. Then, so quietly Adam almost missed it, "Daddy, Grandpa made me promise not to tell." The world stopped. Adam's heart slammed against his ribs. Every protective instinct he had screamed at him to press, to demand answers, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Lucas, sometimes promises need to be broken, especially if something scared you." Lucas shook his head against Adam's chest. He said bad things happen to boys who tell." Dawn's sharp intake of breath filled the dark room. She reached for Lucas, but Adam caught her eye, shook his head slightly. Push too hard, and the boy would retreat further. "Bad things won't happen," Adam said, his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. "I promise you, buddy, nothing bad will happen to you ever again. But I need to know what Grandpa did." Lucas pulled back just enough to look up at Adam. In the dim light from the hallway, his eyes were huge and terrified. "He showed me things. In a room. Pictures. And movies. And he said..." The boy's voice broke. "He said if I told, everyone would know I was bad. That you wouldn't love me anymore." Adam felt something crack inside his chest. He pulled Lucas close again, meeting Dawn's horrified gaze over their son's head. She had her hand clamped over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Listen to me," Adam said fiercely. "Nothing could ever make me stop loving you. Nothing. Whatever Grandpa showed you, whatever he said, none of it was your fault. Do you understand? None of it." Lucas nodded against him, but the shaking continued. Adam's mind was racing, piecing together implications he didn't want to accept. Pictures. Movies. A room. 3.5 hours. His son's terror. The careful grooming. The promise. The threats. The shame. He looked at Dawn. "Call 911. Adam, maybe we should." "Call them. Now." While Dawn made the call, her voice breaking as she tried to explain, Adam held his son and made a decision. He would see this through the right way first: police, investigation, justice system. But if that failed, if Marvin Phillips slithered through some legal loophole, if the system that was supposed to protect children failed his son, then Adam would handle it himself. Dawn hung up. "They're sending someone. They said not to go to my father's house. To wait here." Adam nodded, but he was already calculating. The police would take time. They'd need statements, evidence, warrants. And Marvin Phillips wasn't stupid. He'd had 4 hours to cover his tracks, to hide whatever he'd shown Lucas, to prepare his denials. "I'm going to tuck Lucas back into bed," Adam said. "Stay with him. Don't let him out of your sight." "Where are you going?" "Nowhere. I'm staying right here." But as soon as Lucas finally fell into an exhausted sleep, Dawn sitting vigil beside his bed, Adam grabbed his keys. He texted Dawn, "Can't wait. Need to see for myself." Back before police arrive, he drove through empty streets, his hands gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles went white. Marvin's house was dark except for a single light in the basement. The door was unlocked. Arrogant bastard probably never thought anyone would come. Adam descended into the basement, following the light. What he found in that back room would be burned into his memory forever. Computer equipment, filing cabinets, cameras. And on the walls, God help him, photographs. Not just of Lucas, other children, dozens of them, spanning years. Some of the images were old, faded from decades past. Others were recent, digital prints. Adam's vision tunneled. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone and started taking pictures of everything. Evidence. The police would need evidence. Then he saw the log book, leather-bound and meticulous. Marvin's quartermaster training on full display. Every encounter documented with military precision. Dates, names, acquisition methods. Adam's stomach heaved as he flipped through pages going back 30 years. And there, in the most recent entries, Lucas. 3 visits documented. Today's entry read, initial conditioning successful. Subject responsive to fear-based compliance. Next session, establish recording protocol. Next session, the bastard had been planning to do this again. Adam heard a car door slam outside. The police. He took a final photograph of the logbook entry, then climbed the stairs on shaking legs. 2 officers were waiting in the driveway, a man and a woman. The woman's nameplate read Officer Kara Dunbar. Mr. Snyder? We got a call about. She stopped, seeing his face. Sir, are you all right? Adam held up his phone, hands trembling. Basement. Back room. You need to see this. And you need to find Marvin Phillips. Now. Officer Dunbar's partner, an older cop named Jerry Lambert, was already calling it in. More units. Detectives. Child services. Where is he? Lambert asked. The grandfather? I don't know. I just got here. Door was unlocked. Light was on in the basement. Adam's voice cracked. He was expecting to come back. There's a logbook down there. He's been doing this for decades. Dunbar's face hardened. She'd seen enough in her career to know what that meant. How's your son? Terrified. Home with my wife. Adam looked at her. Tell me he won't get away with this. She met his eyes. We'll do everything we can. But Adam had heard those words before in other contexts. Everything we can wasn't always enough. The justice system had cracks, loopholes, technicalities. Men like Marvin Phillips, educated, connected, respectable on the surface. They knew how to exploit everyone. As more police arrived and the house filled with investigators, Adam stood in the driveway and called Dawn. They're going to want to interview Lucas. Gently, they said, a specialist. Dawn's voice was thick with tears. Adam, what did you find? Everything we need to bury him, Adam said. And everything that tells me he's been doing this his whole life. There was a long silence. Then Dawn whispered, my whole childhood? Was he? I don't know. But we're going to find out. All of it. By the time Adam returned home, dawn was breaking and his son was awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a female detective who'd introduced herself as Jean Wilkinson. She specialized in crimes against children and had a gentle way about her that even Lucas seemed to respond to. Mr. Snyder, Detective Wilkinson said quietly, can we talk in the other room? In the living room, she showed him photographs on her tablet, the same ones Adam had seen on Marvin's walls, now documented as evidence. We've identified 11 children in these images so far. We're working on the others. Most are from years ago, but 3 are recent, including your son. Where is he? Adam asked. Where's Marvin? We're looking. His car isn't at the house. Credit cards haven't been used. We got a bolo out statewide. He ran. Possibly. Or he's planning something. Men like him. She paused. They don't usually run. They think they're smarter than everyone else. They prepare defenses. Adam thought about the meticulous log book, the careful documentation. Marvin Phillips had kept records of his crimes like they were business transactions. That wasn't the behavior of someone who expected to get caught. It was the behavior of someone who thought he was untouchable. What happens now? Adam asked. We build a case. Interview your son carefully. Process the evidence. Get warrants for his financial records, phone records, everything. And we find him. And if you don't, Detective Wilkinson looked at him for a long moment. We will. But Adam was already thinking ahead. He'd spent years working construction, then warehousing, learning how things were built and how they could be taken apart. He understood systems, logistics, the movement of materials and people. And he learned something else from his business courses. Everyone had vulnerabilities. You just had to find them. Marvin Phillips had vulnerabilities. Adam just needed to discover what they were. And then, if the law failed, Adam would exploit them. 3 days passed. Marvin Phillips remained missing. The media had picked up the story. Retired Navy quartermaster wanted in child abuse investigation. And suddenly Adam's quiet life was a circus of reporters and camera crews. He and Dawn had taken Lucas to stay with Dawn's childhood friend Lynette, whose house was off the radar. Detective Wilkinson called regularly with updates. They'd identified 15 children now. 2 families had come forward after seeing the news. They're now adult children ready to testify about abuse that happened decades ago. The case was building, becoming undeniable. But still no Marvin. He's had help. Wilkinson told Adam during their latest call. We found evidence he withdrew $30,000 in cash 2 weeks ago. This was planned. 2 weeks. Adam's mind raced. That was before he took Lucas to the mall. Yes, we think the mall trip was... I'm sorry, Mr. Snyder. We think it was a test run. He was planning something longer term with your son. Adam had to sit down, the implications crashing over him. Marvin had been planning to escalate. The mall trip, the photographs, the next session, note in the logbook. It had all been preparation for something worse. We'll find him, Wilkinson said again. Adam hung up and stared at his phone. Then he started making calls of his own. His first call was to Kevin Vaughn, an old construction buddy who'd gone into private investigation after a back injury ended his roofing career. His second was to Cody Dickey, who worked in IT and owed Adam a favor from back when Adam had helped him move his entire apartment in one night. His third call was to someone he'd hoped never to contact again. Abel Bishop, a guy from his old neighborhood who'd gone into less legal pursuits. They'd grown up on the same street, played basketball at the same court. Abel had gone one way, Adam another, but they'd maintained an understanding. Snyder, Abel's voice was surprised. Been a while. I need a favor. Must be serious if you're calling me. Adam explained, keeping it brief. Abel was quiet for a long moment. Your boy okay? No, but he will be. And the old man? In the wind. You want me to find him? I want you to tell me if you hear anything. Street level. Places the cops might not look. Abel exhaled. Yeah, all right. I got people in low places. I'll ask around. Kevin arrived that afternoon at Lynette's house, a folder under his arm. Got his credit report, property records, everything public. Also got a buddy at the DMV who owes me. Want to tell me what this is about? Adam explained. Kevin's jaw tightened. I got kids, man. Tell me what you need. What Adam needed was a map of Marvin Phillips's life. Every property, every financial connection, every habit and pattern. Because while the police were looking in obvious places, Adam was betting Marvin had a bolt hole somewhere. A place nobody knew about. Cody showed up that evening with his laptop. This legal. The cops have warrants, Adam said. We're just looking at the same information, right? Cody didn't sound convinced, but he started typing. His email accounts are locked down, but his social media is pretty open. Guy's got profiles going back to the early 2000s. Let's see what he talks about. They worked through the night while Dawn sat with Lucas in the next room, reading stories in a gentle voice. Adam could hear her breaking down between chapters, trying to hide it from their son. By 3 a.m., they had a picture. Marvin Phillips owned 3 properties. His main house, a hunting cabin 2 hours north that the police had already checked, and a storage unit facility that had been in his family since the 1970s. The facility had 12 units total, but Marvin only rented out 10. 2 were marked as family use in the county records. That's it, Adam said, staring at the address. That's where he is. Kevin looked skeptical. Cops probably already checked it. Did they? Adam pulled up the property records. Look at the ownership. It's under his father's name, Theodore Phillips. Never transferred. Marvin just manages it. I bet it doesn't show up in a standard search of his assets. Cody was already pulling up satellite imagery. The storage facility was on the edge of an industrial area, backing up to abandoned rail yards. The 2 family units were at the far end, away from the rented spaces. Place looks dead, Cody said. If he's holed up there, he's got privacy. Adam checked the time. 3:17 a.m. He could call Detective Wilkinson, tell her what he'd found. Wait for warrants, surveillance, tactical teams. Do it the right way. Or he could go now. See for himself. Confirm Marvin was there before involving the police. because if he was wrong, he'd waste valuable time and resources. That's what he told himself. But the truth was darker. Part of him wanted to face Marvin Phillips alone, wanted to see the fear in the old man's eyes, wanted him to know that all his planning and preparation had been for nothing. "I'm going," Adam said. "Bad idea," Kevin replied immediately. "Let the cops handle it. I'm just going to confirm he's there. I won't approach him. I'll call it in the second I know." Kevin and Cody exchanged looks. Then Kevin sighed. "You're going anyway, aren't you?" "Yes." "Then I'm coming with you. But we do this smart. Surveillance only." "Agreed," Adam nodded, though he wasn't sure he meant it. They drove in Kevin's truck, lights off as they approached the storage facility. The place was exactly as dated as the record suggested. Chain-link fence, old sodium lights casting orange pools, rows of garage-style units. The family units were indeed at the far end, larger than the others, and one had a light showing around the edges of the door. "He's there," Adam whispered. Kevin pulled out his phone. "I'm calling it in." "Wait." Adam grabbed his arm. "What if he runs? What if he hears the cops coming and has a back way out?" "Adam, just let me get closer. I'll look in the window, confirm it's him, then we call." Before Kevin could argue, Adam was out of the truck. He moved quietly across the lot, keeping to shadows, his heart hammering. The unit with the light had a small window high up on the side. Adam found a discarded crate and stood on it, peering inside. What he saw made his blood freeze. Marvin sat at a desk, methodically feeding papers into a portable shredder. Around him were camping supplies, boxes of food, a cot. He was destroying evidence, but he wasn't in a hurry. He looked calm, almost serene, like this was just another day's work. On the wall behind him was a map stuck with pins. Adam couldn't make out the details, but the implications were clear. Marvin had other places to go, other plans. This was just a temporary stop. The man was going to disappear. Adam's phone buzzed. "Kevin, where are you?" He typed back, "He's here. Destroying evidence. Call the cops now." Then Adam did something stupid. He tried the door. It was unlocked. Later, he'd wonder what possessed him. Rage, maybe, or the knowledge that every second Marvin spent shredding documents was another piece of evidence lost, another victim unnamed. Or maybe it was simpler than that. He wanted the old man to see him coming. The door opened with a creak. Marvin spun around, shock registering on his face before it smoothed into something uglier. "Adam," he said calmly, as if they'd run into each other at a grocery store. "I wondered when you'd figure out. You always were more clever than you looked." "Shut up." Adam stepped inside, his hands shaking with rage. "Cops are on their way." "Are they?" Marvin glanced at his watch. "How long do you think you have? 20 minutes? 30? I'll be gone in 10. You're not going anywhere." Marvin smiled that thin smile. "Oh, Adam, you think this is the first time someone's tried to stop me? I've been doing this for 40 years. I know every move, every counter-move. The police will find an empty room and a few burned papers. Nothing that proves anything. We have your computer, your files, your logbook." "Do you?" Marvin's smile widened. "Or do you have a computer I wanted you to find? Files that point to a sad, sick old man who needs help rather than punishment? As for the logbook," he gestured to the shredder. "Fiction. A symptom of grief-induced delusion after my wife's death. My lawyer will have a field day." Adam's vision tunneled. "You showed my son. Your son is 5. A jury will hear that he was coached, traumatized by overzealous parents who misinterpreted innocent grandfather time. I'll cry on the stand. I'll talk about losing Helen, about reaching out to my grandson in my grief, about how heartbroken I am that you've twisted everything into this nightmare. There are other victims. Adults now. They'll testify. Recovered memories," Marvin said dismissively. "Decades old. Unreliable. And even if a few stick, what's the worst that happens? House arrest. I'm 73, Adam. I'll die comfortable." The casual evil of it, the sheer calculation, sent Adam forward. He grabbed Marvin by his shirt. "You don't get to walk away from this." Marvin didn't flinch. "What are you going to do? Beat me? That'll help your case. An unstable father, prone to violence. Maybe I should be afraid of leaving Lucas with you." Adam's fist connected with Marvin's jaw before he consciously decided to throw the punch. The old man went down hard, blood spraying from his split lip. But he was laughing. "There it is," Marvin wheezed. "Assault. I'll add it to the list of reasons you're unfit. Maybe I'll sue for custody once this blows over." Adam stood over him, breathing hard. Every instinct screamed at him to keep hitting, to make Marvin hurt the way Lucas hurt. But Kevin was suddenly there, pulling him back. "Don't," Kevin said urgently. "Don't give him what he wants." Sirens wailed in the distance. Marvin heard them too, and his smile faded. "They won't hold me. You'll see." But Detective Wilkinson and her team did hold him for 72 hours. And in those 72 hours, something happened that Marvin Phillips hadn't planned for. The story went viral. Not because of the arrest, because one of the adult victims, a woman named Ellen Griffin who'd been abused by Marvin 35 years ago, held a press conference. She named him, told her story, and then others came forward. 10 victims, 15, 20. The evidence Adam had photographed in the basement, combined with the shredded documents forensics recovered from the storage unit, combined with testimony from 24 victims spanning 4 decades, build a case that even Marvin's expensive lawyers couldn't dismantle. But it wasn't enough for Adam. Because he'd seen the calculation in Marvin's eyes, the certainty that even if convicted, he'd find some angle, some way to mitigate the damage. House arrest instead of prison. Minimum security instead of general population. He'd serve a fraction of his sentence and emerge to a comfortable retirement funded by hidden assets. The justice system was doing its job, but justice and revenge weren't the same thing. Adam wanted both. So, while the prosecutors built their case, Adam built something else. He started with Marvin's assets. Kevin helped him trace bank accounts, investment portfolios, the storage facility, everything. Most would be seized as proceeds of crime, but Marvin was smart. He'd have offshore accounts, cash stashes, ways to maintain his lifestyle, even from prison. Adam's goal wasn't to take the money. It was to make sure Marvin couldn't access it. Cody handled the digital side. "You want me to hack him? Because that's super illegal, and I'm not." "I want you to teach me," Adam said. "Teach me how to change passwords, lock accounts, redirect mail. Nothing that involves stealing. Just interfering." Cody looked at him for a long moment. "This about your kid? This is about making sure he understands what it feels like to be powerless. The way he made Lucas feel. Yeah, okay. I'll teach you. But anything goes wrong, you never heard of me." It took weeks of work while the court case ground forward. Adam learned about digital security, social engineering, the weak points in financial institutions. He used the information about Marvin's habits and patterns to build profiles, answer security questions, impersonate the old man to customer service representatives. One by one, Marvin's overseas accounts became inaccessible. Passwords changed. Email recovery questions answered incorrectly too many times, triggering lockouts. Bitcoin wallets corrupted by technical errors. By the time Marvin went to trial, he was scrambling to access his own money, convinced he was being hacked by anonymous vigilantes. His lawyers, suddenly unsure of their fee arrangement, became less enthusiastic in their defense. But Adam wasn't done. He discovered something else in Marvin's files. The names of 3 other men, carefully coded but identifiable through cross-referencing with a logbook. 3 men who'd been part of Marvin's network, sharing images and information. Adam passed those names to Detective Wilkinson anonymously, along with evidence connecting them to Marvin. One was a teacher, another a youth pastor, the third ran a daycare. All 3 were arrested within a month. And when Marvin's lawyers tried to arrange a plea deal, reduce charges in exchange for naming his accomplices, they discovered he had nothing to trade. The police already had everyone. His leverage was gone. The trial took place in September, 6 months after that terrible day at the mall. Lucas had been in therapy, working with a specialist named Dr. Angie Patton, who focused on childhood trauma. He was getting better, still had nightmares, still flinched at loud noises, but he was laughing again, playing again. Adam sat in the courtroom, watching Marvin testify in his own defense, watching him try to sell the jury on his innocence. But victim after victim took the stand, and the weight of their testimony was crushing. Ellen Griffin, now 52, described how Marvin had befriended her family when she was 10, how it started with special treats and trips, how it escalated, how it stole years of her life. Kevin Vaughn's buddy from the DMV, it turned out, had a connection to another victim. Word spread through that informal network of survivors, and they organized themselves, supported each other. They became a wall of truth that no expensive lawyer could breach. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marvin showed no emotion as the verdict was read, but Adam saw his hands trembling. The sentencing hearing was set for 3 weeks later. During those 3 weeks, something else happened. Adam received a letter from one of Marvin's former Navy buddies, a man named Floyd Hodges who'd served with him in the 1970s. Floyd had seen the news and wanted to share something. Marvin always said he was smarter than everyone else, Floyd wrote. He used to brag about his systems, his planning. But he had to tell. When he was worried, he'd touch that pinky ring constantly. If you watch him during the trial, I bet you saw it. Adam had seen it. Marvin touching the ring, spinning it, checking it compulsively. He'd assumed it was just a nervous habit. But Floyd's letter continued. That ring's got a hollow compartment. It's where he kept his insurance, papers, microfilm back in the day, probably USB drive now. Something he thought would protect him if things went bad. Might be worth checking when they process his personal effects. Adam forwarded the letter to Detective Wilkinson. She obtained a warrant, and sure enough, the ring contained a micro SD card. On it, records of offshore accounts worth over $2 million and videos implicating 2 additional predators Marvin had been keeping his insurance against them testifying against him. The 2 additional arrests made national news, and Marvin's insurance became proof of ongoing criminal conspiracy, adding years to his potential sentence. At the sentencing hearing, the prosecutor requested the maximum, 180 years, running consecutively. The defense argued for leniency based on age and health. The judge listened to both sides. Then she asked if anyone wished to address the court. Adam stood. Dawn had offered to speak, but she couldn't. Facing her father, knowing what he'd planned for their son, had broken something in her. She was in therapy too, dealing with the realization that her entire childhood might have been a lie, that the man who'd raised her had been a monster hiding behind a mask. Your Honor, Adam said, his voice steady. 6 months ago, my son went to the mall with his grandfather. He came home traumatized. What we learned in the hours and days that followed changed everything. But here's what didn't change. My job as a father. My job is to protect my son, to make sure he grows up safe and loved and whole. He looked at Marvin, who sat staring straight ahead. The man sitting there tried to destroy my son. Not just hurt him, destroy him. Break him in ways that would last a lifetime. He planned it meticulously. He thought he'd get away with it because he always had. For 40 years, he hurt children and felt no remorse. Adam's hands gripped the podium. My son is 5 years old. He has nightmares. He's afraid of basements. He doesn't trust easily anymore. But he's also brave. He's fighting to get better. He's working with Dr. Patton and with us, and he's healing. That man tried to steal my son's childhood, his innocence, his future. He didn't succeed. Lucas is still here, still fighting, still growing. He paused. Your Honor, I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for justice. Real justice, which means this man never has the opportunity to hurt another child. That means prison. That means the maximum sentence. That means he dies in prison knowing that all his planning, all his manipulation, all his evil was for nothing. The courtroom was silent. Adam sat down, and Dawn squeezed his hand. 20 other victims spoke, or their family members spoke for those who couldn't face Marvin. The hearing lasted all day. When it was over, the judge delivered her sentence. 240 years in federal prison. No possibility of parole. Marvin was 74 years old. He would die in prison. As the bailiffs led him away, Marvin looked at Adam once. Whatever he saw in Adam's face made him look away quickly. The calculation was gone, replaced by the first real fear Adam had ever seen from him. Good. 18 months later, Adam stood in the backyard watching Lucas play soccer with neighborhood kids. The boy was 7 now, taller, louder, more confident. The nightmares had faded to occasional bad dreams. Dr. Patton had carefully reduced their sessions to once a month, then every 6 weeks. Lucas would always carry scars from what Marvin had shown him, what Marvin had said. But he was surviving. More than that, he was thriving. Dawn came out onto the porch, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. Kevin called. He said, "Abel wants to talk to you." Abel Bishop had stayed in touch after everything, checking in periodically. He'd been the one to quietly spread word in certain circles that Marvin Phillips was in federal custody and what he'd done. Prison had its own justice system, and child predators sat at the bottom of it. Adam called him back. "Abel, what's up? Just wanted you to know, your father-in-law had an accident. Medical emergency. Happened yesterday in Gen Pop." Adam's chest tightened. "Is he dead?" "Nah, but he's in the prison hospital. Gonna be there a while. Apparently, some guys took exception to his presence. Nothing fatal, but let's just say he's gonna have a rough time for however long he lasts." Adam should have felt something. Triumph, vindication, maybe guilt. But all he felt was tired. "Thanks for letting me know." "You good?" Abel asked. "Got what you needed?" Adam watched Lucas score a goal, the boy's face lighting up with pure joy. "Yeah, I got what I needed." He hung up and joined Dawn on the porch. She leaned against him, and they stood together watching their son play. "Detective Wilkinson called too," Dawn said quietly. "They arrested another one. Someone from Marvin's files. That's 38 people now. 38 predators off the streets because we found that room. Because Lucas was brave enough to tell us." Adam corrected. Dawn nodded, wiping her eyes. "I still can't believe my own father. How did I not know?" They'd had this conversation 100 times. Adam pulled her close. "Because he was good at hiding. That's what they do. It's not your fault. He used me," she whispered. "Use having a daughter to seem normal. Safe. Trustworthy. And then he tried to use our son. And we stopped him." Lucas ran over, breathing hard, his face flushed. "Dad, did you see my goal?" Adam crouched down. "I saw it, champ. That was amazing. Can we practice more tomorrow? I want to be really good for the tournament." "Absolutely. But right now, Mommy made dinner." As they headed inside, Lucas chattering about soccer strategies, Adam felt something settle in his chest. It wasn't closure. He wasn't sure they'd ever have that completely. But it was peace, maybe, or the beginning of it. Marvin Phillips would spend the rest of his miserable life in prison, stripped of his assets, his freedom, his dignity. His network had been dismantled. His victims were finding justice and healing. And Lucas was playing soccer and dreaming about tournaments, being a normal kid with normal concerns. That night, after Lucas was asleep, Adam sat in his home office looking at the news on his laptop. Another arrest from Marvin's network. The number was up to 39 now. The FBI had formed a task force based on the evidence Adam had found in that basement, and they were methodically taking apart an entire web of predators. His phone buzzed with a text from Detective Wilkinson. "Thanks to your son's courage and your quick action, we've protected hundreds of children. You did good." Adam saved the text. One day, when Lucas was older and ready to hear it, Adam would tell him how his bravery had saved others. How speaking up, even when it was terrifying, had made a real difference. For now, though, it was enough to know that Marvin Phillips had lost everything that mattered to him. His freedom, his money, his carefully constructed image, his power. And Adam had gained everything. His son's safety, his family's peace, and the knowledge that he'd done right by Lucas. That when it mattered most, he'd protected his child and made sure the monster could never hurt anyone again. He closed the laptop and went to bed. Tomorrow was soccer practice, and he'd promised Lucas they'd work on corner kicks. Normal, mundane, perfect. In his cell, Marvin Phillips sat alone, his broken fingers throbbing, his future an endless gray stretch of concrete and bars and fear. He'd thought he was untouchable. He'd been wrong. And Adam Snyder, who'd been dismissed by Marvin as a simple construction worker not good enough for his daughter, had been the one to prove it. Justice had won. But more importantly, so had love and family and a father's fierce protection of his son. That was worth more than any revenge. Though the revenge, Adam thought with grim satisfaction, hadn't hurt either. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. and I'll see you there.